Okay, so we're going north of the border to Scotland for this football club history video. We're looking at Heart of Midlothian Football Club, more commonly known as Hearts. They're founded in 1874. They play their home games at Tynecastle Park, which has an all-seater capacity of 19,852, so a reasonable stadium by Scottish standards outside of the old firm. Pretty sizable home ground. Three interesting facts about Hearts. They're the biggest fan-owned club in the UK. The next two big ones are Exeter City and, of course, FC United of Manchester, which we've done our previous video on. So they are fan-owned as things currently stand. Another interesting fact, when the game was still amateur in Scotland, it had turned professional in England a lot earlier. They were suspended by the SFA for 2 seasons for fielding 2 professional players in a Scottish Cup game in 1895 against Dunfermline, which they won 11-1. They got a 2-season suspension by the SFA until changes were made to their football club. Now, at that time in the 1890s, the game has gone fully professional in England in the Football League, and of course the Football Alliance has been absorbed by the Football League at this point, but the game at the top level in England is professional. Scottish clubs are finding it very difficult to retain the services of their best players. They're going south of the border. Hearts cheekily decided to give 2 of their better players full-time contracts, and they were caught and punished. Unthinkable today that a club would get punished for having, especially in the lower levels of the game, for example, or the non-league having 2 pro players on their books get suspended. But at that time, it was considered as a competitive advantage over their rivals. In this case, Dunfermline lost 11-1, and they were suspended for 2 years until changes were made with the club's hierarchy and their recruitment policy. So that was a fun fact. They were that's the first suspension handed out by the SFA to a football club as well. Also, another fun fact, they're the only club in Scotland outside of the old firm of Celtic and Rangers to complete a league and a cup double. And that's the 1959-1960 season where they won the Scottish League Cup and the Scottish League. No other club has won a league title and one of the 2 Scottish Cups in the same season other than Celtic or Rangers. So that's a fun little fact as well. Now, they've got a fair bit of silverware, Hearts. It's been more difficult in more recent times. They haven't won a trophy for 11 years. Their purple patch is the 1890s and the 1950s. They won a lot of trophies in the 50s. They were one of the best clubs, not only in Scotland but in the UK at the time. So what we now call the Scottish Premiership, or the old Scottish Championship, Division 1, they've won that 4 times. The 1894-95 season. The 1896-97 season. So this is when they're getting suspended when they're meant to be amateur. The suspension didn't last 2 years, of course, but they sort of got round that suspension, but they were handed a punishment. But they won it in the 1890s twice, 1894-95 and 1896-97. They win it again in the 1957-58 season, and of course their League Cup double season in 1959-1960. They've been runners-up 14 times, they've only won it 4. That's very interesting. Scottish Cup is where they have most of their success. They start winning that in the 1890-91 season. They win it again the season after their 2-season suspension, which is obviously only brief. They get it overturned in the 1895-96 season. So the season after, they've been naughty boys. The 1900-1901 season, they win it a 3rd time. The 1905-1906 season, that's their 4th Scottish Cup victory. Then they win it in the 1955-56 season. So their decade of dominance, they only win it the once. The 97-98 season, so in the 90s, it takes till the 90s for them to win their 6th Scottish Cup title. They win it again the 2005-2006 season, and they win it again in the 2011-2012 season. That is their last major trophy to date. So that's been 11 years, 12 seasons since they've lifted silverware. Now, the Scottish League Cup is obviously where they do that league and cup double. They win it 3 times in the 50s. The 54-55 season, the 58-59 season, the 59-60 season, and the 62-63 season. So that is really their top period, is the 50s to the early 60s. They win that 4 times. Their main rivals are obviously Hibernian. Ironically, their first match is on Christmas Day, 1875. Couldn't make that one up. And they've also had an All-Edinburgh Cup final in the 1895-96 season as well, which Hearts won 3-1 on the day. Hearts have the better of the rivalry historically in the head-to-head, which is very interesting. So there is a brief history of Heart of Midlothian Football Club, obviously more commonly known as Hearts. Place your thoughts in the comment section below. How do you think Hearts are going to do this season? They've had flashes in more recent times, but that lack of success in the last decade and a bit is a bit worrying. Hibs, I think, are the dominant club in Edinburgh at the moment, but they are a very historical club going back to 1874. Fantastic. And we shall see how Hearts do this season in the SPL. But very historical club. The 50s was their purple patch, and to a certain extent, the amateur days in the 1890s, early 1900s, they were quite a good side. Very dominant in the 50s, had basically a stacked team, one of the top teams in Scotland at the time. Obviously, more recently, with the old firm dominating, Scottish football is in a bit of a doldrums at the moment, I personally think. But some of the Scottish clubs have got great history and great silverware halls, and Hearts are one of those clubs. So thank you very much for watching. Place your thoughts in the comments section below, and I'll have some more content for you very, very soon.